All right, ladies, we're ready for Gabbin with Grandmas. Okay, this is our first one. Okay, so I'm going to ask you about your story, and I want you to tell your story and tell your name, and they're going to just get to know us today. How about that? Which one? You want to start first?
That's fine. My name's Diane. I've lived here in Coffee County most of my life. I'm married. Been married, well, this month will be 35 years.
Wow, congratulations.
And we have 3 children. 2 are my stepsons, but they're my sons, and then we have 1 son together. I worked at 911 for 38 years, and Bob and I talk all the time. This is home. We wouldn't go anywhere else. We want to stay right here in Manchester. This is home.
Yeah, okay. So you worked on 911, 38 years.
Yes.
So tell us some more about that.
It's a very stressful job. You have to have really want to do the job. It's not a job that if you're going up there for the pay, you won't make it. You have to have a heart for it and feel for people, because people talk to the dispatcher the very worst times of their life. You know, and we're the first person they talk to. We're the first person they're going to scream at and yell at, you know, because they're in a crisis and they want us to help.
Yeah.
So it's very stressful, but it's very rewarding. You know.
So how could you help people out here in the world to not be so reactionary when it comes to crisis or things where someone said something to them that was offensive? What's a good tip to kind of keep your cool?
I guess if you just kind of stop and think, you know, what's going on, that person you're talking to is not the problem. You know, to try to just listen, you know. That's what we would have to tell somebody when they call. Please just listen to me. You don't have to raise your voice. Just listen to me. I'm going to help you. I've got help on the way.
So for me, that's important, because, you know, a lot of times when I'm working with families, couples, it's very hard for people to just tone it down, lower their voice, and just listen. And a lot of fights would stop if we could just breathe.
Yes.
And we could listen. So how did you teach people? Because you were over how many?
We had about 20.
About 20. And you trained too?
I trained. I started out in dispatch, and then I trained, and then I did mapping and addressing, and then when I left, I was the director. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, I mean, you just have to try to. A lot of it's common sense,
Okay.
you know, and just just tell them it's not. They're not yelling at you. They're in a situation and they want help, and they're upset and they're crying. I mean, when somebody calls and says my baby's dead or my husband's passed out, what do I need to do?
Right.
You know, so you just have to try to calm them down, and then, you know, ask a lot of questions to see what's needed, and then we can get the right help. We can give them CPR over the phone, you know, to the ambulance to get there. You just do it because you don't have any other choice.
So since it was stressful, how did you manage that stress so that it didn't, you know, take you into depression and things like that?
You try to, you know, like, don't take it home with you. I mean, a lot of times I could talk to my husband because he was in it, but we tried not to talk about it. We had to separate that.
And he was a policeman, right? Yeah.
Separate it so we weren't bringing it home. Now, sometimes you did, but I think you just had to take a deep breath and say, okay, did I do the best that I could? Did I help them? And if your answer is yes, you felt good about it.
Yeah.
You know, and because of the outcome, you know, we never knew what. Sometimes we would know the outcome, but a lot of times we didn't. But if we heard that person we were trying to help did pass away, but I knew in my heart I'd done everything I could to get people there and to help them.
And you're in Coffee County?
Mm-hmm.
And I've probably had in my practice some of those parents that their children were killed in accidents. Yeah, because there's a lot here, unfortunately, in Coffee County. There's also a lot of people that maybe lose 2 family members in one accident. And you know, it's a hard thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So, was there anything through your career doing that was really super rewarding that you remember?
Well, I know this one time I was new in dispatch, and I pick up the phone, and this guy said, "I've just murdered somebody."
Oh.
And my heart just okay. Now what do I do? So we had somebody else there with me, so they called the officer and said, you know, this is what we got going on. I mean, I was just talking, you know, making chit chat, you know, and stuff. And they said, you need to keep him on the line till we get there. And I'm thinking, how am I going to keep this person on the line, you know? So I just...
Yeah, because he just confessed to murder.
And it turned out it really what it was. They were doing karate and stuff, and he hit him wrong and killed him. So I mean, I was just talking and asking him, you know, stupid questions, whatever, just to keep him, you know, occupied. And I kept him on the phone, and that was rewarding to me. That like, hey, I was able to do what they needed me to do in that situation. And anytime, you know, you heard, you know, a domestic or something, and the officers get there and everything's okay, and you talk to the person. A lot of times we keep them on the phone until an officer got there. You kind of got to know those people, and then it's like with police officers. Very seldom you get a thank you, but then when they would come up or they would send a card and thank us for doing it, and I did a lot of 911 talks in the schools, and those kids would tell me thank you, and they would send little cards and say thank you for coming out. So it's very rewarding.
Yeah, yeah. Do you miss it?
No.
You don't? It was rewarding, but you don't miss it, right?
It's very stressful, but yeah, you know, I feel like I did the best that I could while I was there, so now I'm just kind of enjoying life.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So you're in retirement, and you're here with us on this grandma journey, Gabbin's grandmas, and we're excited to hear more. Now we're going to hear your story. Tell me your story. Tell them your story.
Oh, well,
Because these people don't realize that we have some pretty amazing grandmas in this room.
yeah, we are.
Or very aged grandmas. I'm not grandma, but I'm old enough to be.
Well, my name is Maria. I lived in California along with my husband. We moved in 2020 out here. Our son is in the military, so he was out here. And we have 4 children, 3 girls and a boy between the 2 of us. We were both in law enforcement. My husband was in the Marines first, and then he was a sheriff, and then a police officer. And that's where we met. We're both retired police officers in California.
Maria and I cute, because my husband was in the Marines too, and said, it's just because they're a Marine.
I know, we hear that Marine thing all the time.
Yeah.
So we moved out here when we retired. He retired in 2018. I retired in 2019. And so we came out here. Love it. I love it. Very different from California.
But what were you saying about the weather out here? You chose this because you wanted seasons, but what?
Yeah, but I didn't know you get all the seasons in one day.
It's true. It's true. Last night it was in the 40s, right? Yeah. This morning is the 60s, and then tonight it's going to be, this afternoon is going to be 75.
Yes.
And it'll probably get rain in there somewhere. I'll get a tornado tonight.
Oh, don't have those. That one we had in 2021 went through our backyard.
Oh,
So my
really?
husband now has PTSD.
Oh, not from war, but from...
From the tornado.
Yeah. So tell us some of the things that were really rewarding for you as a policewoman in California.
Like what Diane said, I'd go and talk to children, go to some of the schools. I did that with my daughters. They would have like career day, and I'd go out there with the police car and everything and talk to the kids. I worked several different details when I was there. The one that I actually really liked was school resource officer.
Oh,
That's
okay.
a big deal right now.
Yeah.
And I liked
It's
it.
needed, right?
Yeah. A lot of the guys didn't like working it because they hated dealing, because I worked at a high school, dealing with the high school kids. attitudes.
Oh, really?
You know, so a lot of them are, I can't do that job, but I have patience when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
Until I get to the point where, okay, I'm done, I've had it.
Yeah.
But
Well, did you find that they were more respectful to you as a woman, or are they just like pushing up against these men, or what was the?
I don't know what it was, but I come to know a lot of them, and I would treat them, hey, you have to have responsibility for what you do
Mm-hmm.
in life, and it starts here.
Right.
When you get out in the real world, no one's going to care that you were the high school jock or the head cheerleader or anything like that. They don't care.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
But a lot of them would respect me because I talked to some that, for example, one of them, I guess, was on video flipping off my surgeon. So he showed me the video and who the kid was. I got a hold of him one day and we had a chit chat, and I said, "You did that to my sergeant. How could you do that?" I said, "That disrespects me. I'm responsible, and you kids are my responsibility, and when you go do stuff like that, that looks bad on me."
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it. I said, "Here's the video."
Oh, wow.
And
Age
he
of
says,
video.
"Okay, yeah, that was me." I said, "Don't do that. Okay?
Yeah.
It's a bad reflection."
Now, the age of video has hurt police in some regards because it gives a bad view sometimes, but has it also helped?
Oh yeah. There were a lot of times when officers had the videos on and people would complain and say, "You were harassed me, you called me names, you did whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And come to find out that's not what happened on video.
So the thing that they're trying to tell us that the police don't really like the video is not really true. They do like
No, a lot of them do.
Okay.
You hate putting it on because sometimes you do forget.
Mm-hmm.
I would forget sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I thought, no, you're going to a call. I need it on because I want to make sure that I don't get in trouble.
Right. Okay.
So,
Tell us about that story you were talking about with the baby. Can you tell that one?
yeah, we have, I always have certain things that I remember. And,
And if you want to share a different one, that's fine.
oh no, that's okay. Having children, this one hits, but when you're working, I think you mentioned the dispatcher about being cold. Sometimes you have to be like that. And then when you get in the car, which what I did, I got teary-eyed once I got in the car and away from everything, because then you start thinking of your own kids.
Oh.
But we got a call about a baby that was dead, an infant. She must have had the baby maybe a month or two. Baby was young. Not breathing probably is what the call was. So we go out there and, it's just chaos when something like that happens. You have the mother there, was waiting for the father to come home. The grandmother was there. Her young son, which it must have been 2 years old, was there. You have the police there. You have the fire department there. There's nothing anybody can do because the child was already dead. The child must have had, I'm assuming, SIDS or some kind of respiratory problem where the baby just died in his sleep.
Wow.
And no one knew until they went to go and wake up the child to feed him, and then discovered that he had died. And so one of the protocols, because when you go to a death call, you can't have people, family members and stuff, going through items, moving the body, especially if a suicide. They're hanging, they can't cut the rope and they can't do this and that, because you need to make sure it was either a suicide, natural causes. You need to decide that and find out what's going on and have the coroner come in and take a look at the body to make sure there wasn't anything done to the body.
Right.
So she wasn't allowed to hold the child. And she was upset, rightfully so. And at some point I asked my supervisor, because I thought, this is awful. If it would have been me, I'd want to hold my child. excuse me if I get a little emotional.
Yeah.
But
There's two
I
sisters.
asked him, can she hold a baby? And I said, she wants to hold the baby. Please let her hold the baby. And he says, okay, let her hold the child. You know, the coroner was still not there because the baby was on the bed and we had to keep her out of the bedroom. She was in the living room. She wanted to hold the child. And so I went out there and I told her, you can come in and hold the baby. And she went in. She's still waiting for the father. And, you know, I finally, when he came in, had to tell him what happened. And then they had family members there, and it was awful. It's awful to see something like that because, you know, it could be your own child.
Mm.
So.
Yeah. How did you process through that? Did they get you some help, or were you able to just do it with God?
They do have
Yeah.
counselors for us.
Mhm.
Other times they did have counselors for other. I remember a different call that was a big deal that they, after it was all over, they called everybody in that was on the call and offered them a counselor.
Mm.
But for this one, no.
Really?
No.
Huh. They just didn't think that it was that big a deal. It was
You
abnormal.
could for
Yeah. Oh, I see.
all calls. If you needed to talk to somebody, you could, but I didn't.
Huh. Did it not raise to the level that could actually affect the mental wellness of the police officers?
Oh, it could, yeah, a lot
I know it could,
And
but
especially-
in their minds, did it not raise to the level that they?
maybe not.
Oh,
Maybe not.
okay. All right.
Those are the worst calls, or baby calls,
I would
child
imagine.
child calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
were you a Christian at the time?
I've always believed in God. I was raised Catholic, and I've always believed in God, but not to the extent now that I am very involved in church and everything.
So we all go to Manchester First Baptist Church.
Yep.
Yes.
Everyone's invited.
Great
It's
church.
a good place. Great music.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Saying her, and she sings such a good job.
No, I'm talking about Todd Greener. They do such an amazing job.
But you do an amazing job
Yeah.
too. Singing.
So I think it's amazing how God put this together because we were larger, and then we had one lady who got sick, and one lady who decided she couldn't do it, and then another lady is a MIA. We'll have to get onto her, but you know how you were on the front side of the crisis.
Mhm.
You're the first call,
Right.
and you're the one that gets everything put into place for you to come. You see how that works, and then I'm on the cleanup side. I'm on the side that deals with the emotion, the fallout from the emotion from the crisis, so that people don't get stuck in trauma. God did something amazing. We just figured this out just now.
We didn't
know
even know
this.
it.
Yeah.
No, what happened was we were in Bible study, and we were a question was thrown out. Does anybody even remember what that question was that causes us to start like blah, 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 blah? What was that? Do you remember? It was something that was talking about the
They
culture,
were talking about the revival.
the revival. Yeah, but what was it they said? Oh, we were talking about, I know what it was. They talked about the revival, and then one of you chimed in, there's been 62 schools now,
Oh, yeah, it was Sandy that was
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
what happened was, it was not the place and time for us to break out in this lovely discussion. So we're like, hey, let's meet and see if we can do this, and this evolved from that. So just so everybody kind of knows all of us, because if we go through, they know our stories, they know what perspective we're coming from. It's going to be more meaningful when you make a comment, because they're going to know your background. That's going to be important. And as we add other ladies, then we'll let them share their stories and things like that.
And us being from a law enforcement background, we have a different perspective
You
than
do.
the normal person out there.
You
know?
do.
And
Because we really do not know. I had a situation the other week where I had to call the police to come, and then we've had other situations where, you know, we were worried that, you know, something would happen. I had a domestic one time, and the woman was almost killed, and you know, he was using her phone to text me as her. And so there was a lot of things going on there, and I'm so grateful for the police officers, you know, that come out to assess the whole situation and the 911 people, you know, they're really good to make sure we get to the right place. It's comforting to know that we can just pick up the phone and call and get someone who's going to take care of what we need, and, you know, in a crisis and things like that. So my story, I actually started out, my family owned their own business, so I learned bookkeeping and all that. I could sell chainsaws and lawnmowers, and I could even change tires, because that's what we did, was tires and lawnmowers and all that. But at a certain time, my uncle began to teach me how to do books. So that just led into the progression of actually going into corporate America, into banking and doing accounting and accounts receivable and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I went for the longest time. I was in that. I worked for Bank of America, and I worked for Ingram Book Company and all these kind of things. But when I went to Ingram, I started thinking, I have something going on here, because I would be in my cubicle and everybody would want to come in and talk with me. So as a joke, I put a lamp in the cubicle and a little chair in the back, so that anybody would come and they made fun. It was like a counselor's office. And during that time, I felt God calling me to actually go into counseling. And my husband had just he'd been working on his PhD, was a pastor. So I was a pastor's wife for 25 years while being in accounting and all that. And then during that, I said, would you mind if I quit my job? Now, we were giving up our insurance and everything. Quit my job and go back to school. I need to sit in a classroom to get my master's degree so I can be a counselor. And he said yes, you know, and I thought, oh my goodness. I said, well, okay, let me take 2 weeks. I'm going to go to Florida, visit some family, do that kind of stuff, and then we'll come back and I will start this venture. I had been out of school so long that when I went for the interview to get into Trevecca, they actually all turned me down but one lady, and because my grades were not good. So this is a shout out for all those people who want to go back, just trust God. And so one lady said, I see something in her. So she said, I'll put you on academic probation. And actually she works in the counseling office right next to my office in Murfreesboro now. And she was one of my favorite teachers. And just taught me a lot. She actually taught the grief class that I was in. But I went through and I got the academic probation and I aced it. And so I was off of academic probation really quick. I went through the program for 18 months. And then after 20 years of being told there is no way you can have a child, I got sick and thought my gallbladder was going out. But I found out I was pregnant. So I'd been pregnant for 2 months, didn't know it. And I was in the middle of a master's program with a whole bunch of young people. And I was going nuts. I had no insurance or anything. And God just took care of everything. He took care of whatever we needed. We knew we were high risk. We had to have a lot of ultrasounds. At one time, the doctor said, you need to consider an abortion because she doesn't have a part of her lips, spine, and nose, is what the ultrasound was saying. Well, the ultrasound tech, this is one of the things, you know, you said be calm as you're talking. Mm-hmm. She was too excited, and she called, this is terrible, and I'm like, what do you mean? And she said, we're going to have to get you back in. I said, okay, I'm in the car right now, I'm driving. She goes, no, you have to wait till next week. I'm sorry, what do you mean? She said, well, it doesn't have this, and it doesn't have this. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll come back next week. So that whole week, I wrote a song to sing to her, and she had beautiful eyes, beautiful lips, beautiful nose, and beautiful toes, and I'd already named her Hannah, and she's the most beautiful girl in the world is what I was singing to her. And I remember that week of just being so afraid, because we had had a foster child before that we had 3.5 years that had a mental disorder, and they took him away and put him in a mental institution. So we were not able to adopt him. So my thought was, when this happened with Hannah, was that God would take her too. Mm-hmm. So I lived in this fear. Well, we went back for the ultrasound. They're going around, they said, she's fine. But yet they were so convinced that I need to go through an abortion. And I said, you can forget that. Well, before.
Oh.
Because of my age. She was 46 when she came. Well, I was 46. And so they just thought that, you know, you're going to have this problem, that problem, you need to go ahead and abort her. So I am definitely pro-life, 100%. And I know that that will make some of our viewers upset, you know. But the truth is, I walked on that. I was barren for 20 years. And then I have this beautiful daughter who has absolutely no flaws. And I told God, I told the devil, you will not take my joy again. So the next ultrasound, because I had to have one every month, she's being really quiet, and I said, what's wrong? And she said, well, she's missing a kidney. I said, she only needs one, keep it moving. And then she said, oh, there it is. And so the devil just tried constantly.
Yeah.
So I wonder sometimes if people have been lied to, because abortion is a business. And this is where we touch on the culture, you know. It is a business. That medical we just saw with Vanderbilt, that they were actually saying it is a business when they are lobbing off body parts for these kids. And, you know, our Governor Lee stood in the gap, said we're not going to do that. We followed Matt Walsh. Listened to him. He was very instrumental in all that. So I'm a firm believer that you need to let God deal with that. And all these things that they throw out about the life of the mother and all this, even if I know everybody has to make their own decisions on that. Even if they had told me that my life would have been required for her to be here, I would have said, okay. Because I'm in God's hands. And so after that, I went back. I didn't think I would go back to school because Todd said you can stay home and raise her. And I could not get away from it. So I went back to school, I finished, and then I went on and got my seminary, and then I went on and got my PhD. And after that, then we opened up, well, before that, we had opened up Youth for Broken Counseling. And we help people who've gone through crisis and to get their lives back together, and we're Christian counselors. So we have location in Murfreesboro and 2 here in Manchester. And we're so glad to be in Manchester. We love it here. And Manchester has an actual Facebook forum page that we'll be posting to. So you might have some friends, you know, and that kind of thing. So what other kind of things are y'all thinking about in your as we get ready to jumpstart this Gabbin with grandmas? We are not just people that are 50 plus, because I'm not a grandma, but I'm of that age because I'm 58. Y'all don't have to tell how old you are unless you want to. But I'm proud of it, actually. But because I'm in that weird land where I have a 12-year-old and I'm 58. And people assume that I'm the grandmother.
Yeah.
But I'm the mother.
Well, I went through that.
You did?
Then I was 38.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
When he was born, and everybody would say, "Is that your grandson?" No, it's my son.
That's right.
You know.
And actually, you know, now it's kind of, the waters are muddy because a lot of grandparents are raising their kids.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I asked y'all a question. This is something we're just gonna throw the question out there, and then we're gonna end this segment and then start another one. So I asked y'all a question when we got started. What are some things that you're wanting to see changed in this world? You're wanting to be a part of the change? What kind of things? Which one of you wants to go first?
There's a lot.
I know. See, we don't. Y'all gonna hit on it. Just say what it is, and then we're gonna be to be continued.
We probably talked about this in connection group. I mean, there's, and I don't know how true it is because you only see what you see, but so much division. Just a lot of people that run our government want to divide people. That's not.
If you watch people, like for example in our church, you see people that really want to be, and we're not abnormal as far as that. For the most part, people want to be friendly and kind and generous, just like we just exceeded our goal for the Lottie Moon by, you know, it was what we were supposed to get 20, and I got 27,000, you know. So people, even in this economy with the gas and everything, they're still being generous. They still believe that God is able, and that God will take care of them, and God's people have what they need, you know. So that's what is really. But when you look at the news, you think that we all hate each other, and that we only see skin color, we only see gender, we only see this, but that is not true. That's why I want to do this, because
Yeah.
actually we are the reality. You know, we all have different perspectives, but we generally want to make this world a better place. What about you?
Well, it's kind of like the same thing, you know. I feel like it's a race, and it's, you know, it's not about race. It's not. I mean, we're all God's children,
All our blood's red,
you know.
except for the aliens who got green.
And the
Yeah.
media, you know, the
Those are
media
jokes.
wants to, you know, make it racist, and it's
Yeah.
not. Because people are going to mess up. I don't care, female, male, whatever you are, whatever race you are, we're all going to mess up. We all sin.
Mhm.
But we love each other, and we need to be helping each other. We need to get this country back to, I guess, God's rules and stuff. You know, look, God has blessed this country.
Mhm.
And we need to go back to that and thank God and get it back to where it used to be, you know, because us being older, we've seen a lot of things that we never, ever thought we would ever see or have to deal with. And
It's
it just
scary.
breaks our hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
You know,
scary.
Yeah. And as for me, I started Beautifully Broken Counseling because I saw the damage of secrets and how they kill family systems. And my whole thing about, and I was a pastor's wife for 25 years, my whole thing is that we've got to come out of the shadows of shame, start telling the truth, start being honest with each other. If a spirit of offense rises, we need to speak up without being offensive and say, you know, that seemed like it was, that like you've been hurt in some kind of way. Can you explain more to me? I want people to stop running away from each other. You know, I've done that in my life too. We all have. And,
We all have.
just have the conversations. That will heal a lot. And like you said in the beginning, as we wind this back up, just breathe and listen. If you breathe and you listen, then a lot of understanding comes. When we lost our foster child, Todd thought that I blamed him, and I thought that he blamed me. And we had a wise counselor, and she said, I want you to go home, and I want you to set a timer. And I still use this with my couples today. Set a timer for 30 minutes. And then one of you talks for 30 minutes without the other one commenting, taking notes, or reacting or running away, and that will be hard, but do it. So I let Todd go first because he's the head of the household. And at the end of that 30 minutes, I had every doubt dispelled, every question answered. And there literally was nothing more for me to say in my 30 minutes that other than it was just things that were life affirming and things that would take us forward. And after that, then we had a date. We went out and had a date, and we walked away from it. But it started with a counselor saying, "You've got to listen." And when you listen,
talk to
yeah,
each other.
you got to talk. All right, so good job, ladies. This is our first Gabbin with Grandmas. We will come back to part 2, and we will talk about this very thing. So don't forget what you talked about. Okay? Anybody need to say anything to anybody? Okay. Bye.